Radio is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. At Academy Sports and Outdoors, we carry all the gear you need from the top brands, all at prices you'll love. And now shopping at the Academy is more convenient than ever. We offer free assembly on in-store purchases of most bikes and grills, plus free and easy curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Want to save even more every day? Open and use an Academy Sports and Outdoors credit card to get 5% off future purchases when you're approved. Save time and money at Academy Sports and Outdoors and have fun out there. Welcome in to another edition of Gold and Black Radio presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. Unfortunately for Purdue, their play matched the weather situation from last Saturday, which was messy. 3 red zone turnovers washed away any real chance Purdue had of winning in a 33-17 setback to the Trojans of USC. We'll take a look back on Boilers Southern Cal and look forward to a rivalry renewal with Notre Dame coming up here in just a few moments with Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison. But first, some kudos to the great Gold and Black sponsors that make this show possible, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler Up, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, is perfect for relaxing staycation or weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermaker scientists from across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers new ways to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer. With your support, cancer research saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Let's dial up the experts here. Tom Dienhart, who still has a home phone, and Dub Jellison, who has no idea what a home phone is, as we talk about Purdue, USC, and look forward to the Irish here in a little bit. Tom, I find myself a little bit torn here because it's a 16-point loss, but there's almost some frustration in how Purdue ended up not being able to make that a tighter game than it probably could have and maybe even should have been. I guess glass half full. If you would have told me that Purdue was going to lose the turnover battle 3-0, I would have thought the final margin would be closer to 60 instead of 16. So I guess we can start there.
Yeah, it's always that what if, right? What if X, Y, or Z didn't happen? And to your point, Derek, the what if are those red zone interceptions. 3 of them in all for Purdue. And, yeah, you kind of wonder what if they hadn't had those mishaps, how close this game could have been, Derek Schultz. Could maybe Purdue have pulled the big upset? So I guess live and learn. But like you said, in hindsight, if you'd have told me back in August, like you said, Purdue was going to only lose this thing 33-17 despite having a 3-0 disadvantage in takeaway / turnovers, I would have been surprised. But lots to build on, right? Lots to build on here. They're still a relatively healthy team. They move the ball very well, right?
Yeah.
I think, Josh Henson, the OC, I know he's the OC. He's going to say he did a good job, but he was right point. He said today they did move the ball up and down the field. So there was that, too, in the defense. Defense has some issues to tend to, but all in all, guys, I think Purdue has to be pleased with the way it battled, because I tell you what, you kind of wonder what last year's team would have done in the face of that adversity, especially following the first INT in the end zone. Purdue laid down and got to beat 50-7. So long story short, I think there's a lot to build off of for the Boilermakers moving forward.
Yeah, I heard Brian Newbert say exactly that, Tom, on the Saturday simulcast where, they throw that red zone pick. I think he had his Purdue score as hypothetical score is 47-3, I think is what Brian ended up saying. But you're right. I mean, the first thought that went through my head when that happened was, oh boy, this is going to be an afternoon, right? You were waiting for the other shoe to drop. And while USC never was seriously threatened, the dropping of the other shoe never really came, Dub, because Purdue use that fight to stay in the game. And I understand here that, some people are going to tune in and be like, wow, what are you guys talking about? Every loss is a failure and you guys are homers and the whole deal. But I do think there's something to just that baby step of fighting through adversity. This team crumbled so much last year. And I understand, like, different team, different players, different coaching staff, the whole deal. But still, the fans were here for this. The coaching staff and the players weren't. The fans were. So for the fans to see that fight, I think it's meaningful. I think it's meaningful to see Purdue football fight again.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I did have a home phone when I was little. So let's just get that out the way. Second of all, we talked about it last week, right? If Purdue was to lose, it kind of mattered in what fashion. And I think all things considered, I think fans should come out of Saturday relatively encouraged by what they saw. You take away those three interceptions, Purdue might win that game. They might not, obviously, but I think they showed some signs, especially going back to last year. Not even with the start, just I think the pure talent deficit that Purdue is facing against a program like USC, it was going to be a one-sided affair. And this year it's a little different. So you got to take the silver linings, I guess, from what we saw on Saturday. I thought the defense, they're going to need to get off the better starts. That's first and foremost. They kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball on Saturday and looked a little shaky in that first quarter against Southern Illinois. Having a lot of touchdown in the second half still. So I think that's really encouraging, especially against a USC offense that was, I think, number 2 in the country in scoring. So a lot of good things, a lot of things that kind of make you scratch your head and give you pause for this Notre Dame game coming up, and then Illinois, and so on and so forth for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Tom, I really think, a lot of the focus is going to be on Ryan Brown, and we'll talk about his performance in a little bit. But in order for, even though this offense was moving the ball in an ideal world, especially when you consider all the mishaps in the red zone, you would love to be in a position where you can run the ball effectively. And it just didn't appear that Odom and Henson had any confidence. To be fair, they were pretty overmatched on both lines, right, against USC. I mean, you look at USC and you look at Purdue, and it doesn't take a football coach to realize there's going to be a mismatch there, just looking at what they put up front compared to what Purdue put up front. But that's something that's going to have to change this season, where Purdue's going to have to employ that running game and be able to use it. And it felt like they were fighting a little bit with one hand tied behind their back there.
Yeah, Dub and I were on the field before the game watching USC come out, man. Derek Schultz, those are some large human beings. For USC. One of them was number 0, who I have confirmed is the heaviest player ever to score a touchdown at Ross-Ade Stadium on that pick.
Really?
360 pounds. He's got to be the heaviest guy, right?
I bet Alan knows that off the top of his head. Heaviest players to score at Ross-Ade Stadium.
360 pounds. Anyway, yeah, Ryan Brown, the run game, you're right. Maccabee had some good runs early on. I think some of it too, Derek, were Ryan Brown's reads on the RPO too. I think there were sometimes he should have probably handed off to Devin Maccabee. That didn't happen. So there's a little bit of that there. I think the short passing game a lot of times is a de facto Brown game too. But
sure,
that's all well and good, guys. When you get inside the red zone, that short passing game is a lot harder to execute. That's when you got to show your muscle. You got to be able to run the football. Your line's got to get a push. So you're right. You hate to get behind, because then that sometimes can limit what you can do in the run game. But you never want to give up on the run. I think you always want to keep Devin Maccabee involved, and I think he was a total non-factor in the second half for the most part. So we'll see moving forward, guys, because the schedule's not going to get much easier, right? Starting this weekend, I know Notre Dame has its issues on defense, but they got Ohio State and Michigan, and these Big Ten lines they're full-grown men. So a lot for that line to show us, guys. And Dub and I were at the pressers Monday, and the offensive line was a big point of a lot of the questions to Derek, to Barry Odom and Josh Henson. And they know there's issues there with pass protection. They know there's issues there with getting a consistent push. They say they're going to get things buttoned up, so we all know there's work to be done up front.
Dub, obviously the turnovers were what stuck out from Brown, even though I don't think the second one was really his fault. But I was actually encouraged by his ability to spread the ball around. I think that has a lot to do with the receiver room. I mean, essentially, Purdue's pass offense didn't actually factually exist, I don't think, last year. But when they did actually throw the ball, it was Max Clare. And it looks like they at least have some other options in that room. How do you feel about the early returns in that department?
Yeah, Nitro Tuggle, I think, is coming into his own. I think when he was signed in the spring, I think all Purdue fans were excited. I think we were all excited to see that caliber of receiver with that talent come to Purdue. It took him a little while to just to get comfortable in the scheme and the way that Barry Odom and Josh Henson like to do things, but. We asked Barry Odom about him today, and he said that he's practicing better, being more consistent, and it's showing up on the field now. Against Southern Illinois, he only had one catch, the 29-yard touchdown, but I think 4 for 69 and a score on Saturday. I think, he could become that number one guy for Purdue's offense on the outside. And then obviously, Michael Jackson, I think, has been super consistent throughout fall camp and the first 3 games this season. EJ Horton is a guy that kind of surprised me. He's a guy that I kind of looked at as depth, and he really stepped up. And I know the coaching staff is really high on him. And you still got Armand Branch, who we didn't see a whole lot of on Saturday, but has obviously had some great moments in the early going this year. So it's a room that needed people to step up, and I think we're starting to see that. And it hasn't been one guy dominating the targets like we've kind of seen from some Purdue teams in the past. You look back at like Charlie Jones and David Bell and Rondell Moore. They had that one go-to guy. The last couple of years, they didn't have anyone except for Max Clare, really. So now you're kind of starting to see Ryan Brown spread it around a little bit, and I think that's the mark of a good offense is having so many different options where you can go with the ball. So, and I didn't even mention George Burton, right? He's stepped up lately as well. So I'm encouraged by what I've seen. That was the group that I think I had the biggest question mark about, and they've started to put that to bed a little bit. We'll see if that can continue.
Tom, in your decades around college football, have you ever seen a touchdown quite like that Ryan Brown broken play, scoop it up and just go? I had a buddy that said it looked like he was running in flip-flops, but he got there.
I love wearing flip-flops. I could not do that in flip-flops. Yeah, to Doug's point, if Dylan Morissette hasn't played yet this year, neither is Chauncey Magwood. So those are 2 other receivers that could be bolstering this wideout core. No, Derek, I'm not seeing something like that. We asked Josh Henson about that play today, and heads up to Ryan Brown for having the awareness. No, it was a backward pass / lateral to pick that up and scoot to pay dirt from 34 yards out. Josh Henson thought that Michael Jackson shouldn't have thrown the ball to begin with. I mean, that USC defender was draped all over Ryan Brown, but I don't know how he didn't pick the ball off. So good fortune for Purdue. But, you get on the board any way you can. That was their first touchdown that day. So, this offense that we all know has some potential here. And I spoke earlier about the struggles of the Notre Dame defense. There was talk about, first-year DC Chris Ash, would Marcus Freeman take back the headset and start calling the defense? He said no. Of course, Al Golden, last year's DC, is with the Bengals now. They're struggling on the back end. The defensive line has been subpar all year. This is an angry Notre Dame team, though. We know that, right, guys? They're 0-2. Their back's already against the wall if they want to make the CFP. So they know there's probably zero margin for error, and it's only mid-September. And they certainly can't afford to lose to little old Purdue, right? 26.5-point underdog. So we know the deck's stacked against the Boilermakers, but how will Notre Dame respond? What if Purdue punches them in the nose right away? Gives them some adversity. As you said earlier, Derek, about adversity, that's what defines us all. How you respond to that. Purdue did a good job on Saturday. I'm sure they're going to face plenty of it this coming Saturday as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think we all know the Purdue's history in South Bend is not great, to say the least. They've won there once in the last 50 years. They've lost 9 straight overall in the series. You got to go all the way back to 2007 for the last time that they beat Notre Dame. But again, Notre Dame feels like they're at a crisis point, just like last year. And last year they responded, and now, Dub, it's about, I guess, seeing if they respond again. But, like Tom said, this looks to this Chris Ash defense looks a lot different than the Al Golden defense. I mean, we talk about some of the players, Xavier Watts and some of the NFL guys that they lost. Mm-hmm. I think so far in the first 2 weeks of the season, the biggest loss for Notre Dame has been their defensive coordinator.
Yeah, absolutely. It's odd to see, really, after the defenses that we've seen out of that program especially the last few years, right? I think Notre Dame is open for the taking. This game is open for the taking for Purdue. It's not a particularly strong Notre Dame team. They're going to have their opportunities. We're going to see if they can take advantage of the opportunities. That's something that they just didn't do on Saturday. And when you're going up against a team that has that much of a talent, or when you're at that much of a talent deficit, as Purdue will be against Notre Dame. You got to have big plays. Purdue didn't have any really in the first half. Had to wait till the second half to get those when it was kind of too little, too late. You got to start forcing turnovers, something that Purdue hasn't done. And then you got to be sound with the football. And over the first 2 weeks, I thought Ryan Brown did a great job of taking care of the football, with the exception of the one interception against Southern Illinois. Last week, he kind of showed his inexperience a little bit, and I think that's something that Notre Dame's probably looking at, saying this is potentially an offense that we can get back on track against, right? So it'll be interesting to see the chess match between Chris Ash and Josh Henson, but this is definitely a more gettable Notre Dame team than we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, and while I agree with that, Tom, my focus isn't even necessarily on, you talk about the talent deficit. They're going to face a tremendous one against Notre Dame. Even Illinois, who's really ramped up the recruiting as well. I think the first 3 games give me more confidence. Originally we were looking at that stretch with Minnesota and Northwestern and Rutgers and saying, yeah, maybe kind of, sort of, Purdue can grab a couple of those. But now after these first 3 games, I'm feeling like those are more like coin flips. They're still like a 27-point underdog to Notre Dame, right? That's going at Illinois, even though that series has been weird for the Cannon. I don't view that as a 50-50 game, but now I'm looking at that October stretch and thinking far more positively than I was 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, and Minnesota looks like they may be vulnerable, Derek. They got beat at Berkeley against the Cal Golden Bears last week, and they haven't set the world on fire coming out of the gate. So, Rutgers, we've talked about at home for the homecoming game, going to Evanston, that's winnable. Now maybe the Minnesota game does as well. Yeah, that'd be 5 wins, Derek. Just find one more, right? Maybe you pull an upset along the way against an Illinois and Indiana, or who knows, maybe against Notre Dame. And this is some semi-breaking news. It looks like Marcus Freeman's told the media that he says, will I spend more time with the defense? He said, maybe. If that's what's necessary, I will. So maybe Marcus will get more involved. I think he knows the stakes are high, fellas. And his is the name on the building. And I can imagine he wants to be in control. If the ship's going to sink, he wants to be driving it, so to speak. So just another fun storyline there. So, yeah, so who knows? It's going to be a fun season, and I know everybody in the Kozich football complex is optimistic. I think they know where they're at, and think they feel good about their plan every week. And you got to like their chance. They're always going to be prepared and well coached. Can they execute it? Just not be out talented. So it's going to be fun to watch this all unfold.
And they're going to fight, which again kind of rounds us back to the beginning of our conversation. That was good to see them not collapse at the first sign of adversity. We'll be back with you guys on Friday for our game preview of Notre Dame. So join Tom, Dub, myself, and the rest of the Golden Black crew, Brian, Allen, etc., for those shows each and every week. The absolute best Purdue football coverage can be found right here at goldenblack.com and on social media. So follow along Tom and Dub for updates. Appreciate you guys, and we will talk again here in a couple days.
Thank you, sir. Be good.
Thanks, Derek.
It's Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison, and that is our Golden Black Radio show for this Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining us, and thank you to our presenting sponsor, Academy Sports and Outdoors, as well as Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans, East End Grill and Ripple & Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're listening to Golden Black Radio on. And of course, if you could leave a positive review, maybe about my hair or my giant forehead, or maybe about the actual content of the show, we would appreciate any of that. Also, if you haven't already, you're going to want to subscribe to goldenblack.com. That's where you get all of our insider coverage. That's where you get Boiling Over and thoughts from Brian. That's where you get Tom. That's where you get Dub. That's where you get Knucklehead Central. You get the whole plethora of bells and whistles at goldenblack.com by becoming a subscriber today. Also, don't forget about our YouTube channel. So search goldenblack.com on YouTube, and new highlights and videos are uploaded regularly there. You can enable alerts for whenever we put up new content, and you'll get pinged on your phone. Enable alerts as well for Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever platform you're listening on, and we would greatly appreciate that. Friday's show, we'll have the preview of Notre Dame as that rivalry is renewed, and a lot of fun in store for a Week 4 edition of Gold and Black Radio. But until then, I'm Derek Schultz. Hope you have a tremendous weekend. We will see you next time right here on GBR. As you all know by now, Gold and Black Radio has also teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet. Offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that can expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.